Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca,
And I'm Landon.
and we're doing yet another pop up late night podcast because things keep happening, don't they, Landon?
Definitely change on Monday night. They like to send stuff out just in time for family home evening.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I really do. I mean, people can probably tell my mascara's smeared. I've just been on the newscast for, was it 4 hours? Something like that. Anyway, we are dedicated to getting out the news about Fairview. And although I touched a bit on it on the newscast, we are going to read through the letters. We're going to give people some more information because, of course, we've been following this for, gosh, it seems like years, doesn't it, Landon?
Certainly does. Yep.
It certainly does. But yeah, I mean, we had an update on Friday. I hope a lot of you watched. If you haven't, that's in the temple playlist that we have. And, we covered a few things. So we'll go over those really quickly. And then something very surprising happened Monday afternoon that we weren't really expecting. And it kind of was a game changer as far as how we're looking at everything in Fairview. It was really interesting and unexpected, and I want to thank everybody that sent me. My email just blew up all of a sudden, right? And like I said before, most of the things that we get are from faithful viewers or people that want to contribute to Mormonish, and so they were able to send us a lot of letters that their members were getting in their stakes, and they were able to get us the information, and some other people sent us some of the documents. So that was very nice. I appreciate everybody keeping us in the loop, don't we, Landon?
We do. Yep.
Yep, we do. So I do have a couple slides to go through just to catch us up, and then we are going to go through exactly what happened today, what was delivered to the town of Fairview. All right, we got the slides pulled up. That's impressive given that it's the middle of the night, isn't it? All right, so we're going to be talking about the LDS Church intends to sue Fairview, Texas over the temple. And I think we knew this was a possibility. Here we have the two renderings. On the left, we have the original McKinney, Texas temple, 173 feet, 43,000 square feet, with the walls at a maximum height there of 65 feet. During a non-binding mediation that happened in November between the church and the town of Fairview, they came up with this schematic. And this is reduced to 120 feet. The walls are only 35 feet. And I think the footprint is 30,000 square feet. I think so. It was reduced pretty significantly. Yeah. So this is kind of where
Well, when we say pretty significantly, it was, significantly reduced, but still not within the range of what they
yes,
had told them it needed to be at.
that's exactly right. You're absolutely correct on that. Yep. Because the zoning allows for the 35-foot walls and the 60, I want to say 68
Well,
foot.
68 is what the tallest steeple in town currently is at, which is the LDS church. So this is twice as high still as the tallest church in town, which is the LDS church.
Which is the LDS church. True. And I should correct, I said the zoning allows, and that's not true. Churches can use a conditional use permit, and they can be in any zone that isn't a flood zone or evacuation zone. And then you go through the process. So, but so far, like Landon said, tallest building, already the LDS Stake Center.
Typically, what happens is a town council will look at precedents
Mm-hmm.
and say this is the precedence for these type of buildings. And since 68 was the highest, that's what they gave us as the limit for the church.
That makes sense. Okay, let's quickly get up to speed and then we'll get right to what we're talking about. So, we talked about on our podcast on Friday that the church was supposed to, as part of this non-binding mediation agreement, was supposed to submit the new application. That means here's the picture of what we want to build, here's all the specs. They were going to turn that into the town. And by doing it on the 13th, that meant it could be up for discussion and vote on February 13th, a month later, at the planning and zoning. They didn't ever submit it. And our podcast on Friday was all about why the heck not? What is happening? So a newspaper article came out in the Dallas Morning News. Hearings delayed for Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple. The church will not present a revised temple plan next month. Residents have continued to oppose the temple. So she was just indicating, the author of the article here, that that's what happened. They did not submit it like they were expected. And as far as we knew, there had been no information given to the town, right, Landon?
That's correct. And this was written on January 21st. So as some of you who have listened to our last Friday this is what we talked about, was that they hadn't submitted it. So what's different about this podcast than the previous podcast? Well, at this point, the church has uh, what they said in these documents and what they told the newspaper last Friday is in fact not true. They are
Right.
not submitting anything. They have filed an intent to sue. And
That's
that's
right.
what we're going to go over here is, we're going over what led to that. And that's
Yep.
how this is different than our previous podcast.
Yep, absolutely. So the next step, the next thing that happens. So if we go to the next slide really quick, there was actually here again, this is it. They did not submit on the 13th of January. Okay, let's go to the next one. We just talked about that. And the deadline again, as we said, would have allowed them to go to the planning and zoning meeting on February 13th, but that's not going to happen now. So finally, a church communications representative, Melissa McNeely, on the next slide came out and explained why they didn't submit it. And she said they were just going to take some more time to make sure everything was in place with what was agreed on in mediation. I said meditation. I feel like I need meditation right now, don't you? So that's what she said. No big deal. No big whoop, right? Is kind of how you take it. And she also said the dates for the public hearings for the church application will slide a few weeks until the plans are submitted. So that statement there says to me, they're still going to submit the application. They're just trying to do some due diligence back and forth. Of course, on our previous podcast, we showed what due diligence. The town did everything it was supposed to do. But this definitely lulls you into a sense that, we're just doing some stuff and then we're going to submit the application. Is that kind of how you took it?
Well, it's not how I took it. That's exactly what she said. It says right in here that she said the church still plans to submit the application, but is taking more time to make sure everything
Yep.
is in place with what was agreed upon in the mediation.
Yep.
She did not say we plan to sue the city. Why? Because that would have been a public affairs nightmare. And so
Yeah.
she didn't want to say that.
No, but what's interesting, like you said, the date of this article is the 21st. And as we're about to show you, of course, we didn't know, but behind the scenes, the town had already received a letter on the day of the missing application telling them the intention. So you're right. This statement on the 21st, Melissa already knows that the church has sent a letter of intent to sue. I think she already knows. If she doesn't, then the church is not communicating with their communications director there in the area. So that kind of makes you wonder that they're saying one thing to the press and they've done another thing behind the scenes.
Well, that is how the church works. Anyone who's been in the church, we all know that when it's a public comment, they always say one thing, and to their members, they say something else, or but yeah, this is straight up and outright lie. She's telling them that this is what they're doing when they, in fact, have already sent a letter to the city,
Yeah.
and we'll show you that dated July 13th, stating that we don't plan to continue with mediation, and with the plan according to mediation, and we are letting you know that we intend to sue.
Yep. In January on the 13th. All right, let's quickly go through these and then we'll get to the letter, the good stuff, the new stuff. So we did go through this non-binding agreement on our last podcast where we went through everything. The town did what it was supposed to do, steps 1 and 2. I don't know, do you want to go through those or do you think we've covered those enough? Yeah,
No.
okay, let's see what the agreement, non-binding, non-actionable, yet hammered out in mediation. What did the town agree to do? And then what was the church supposed to do?
Yeah, so the town had two responsibilities. The first two responsibilities were the town. They were to convene an executive session by no later than Tuesday, December 3rd, to consider a tentative settlement and vote in open session whether to recommend approval of an anticipated amended cup for the construction of a temple as proposed below. And then the size is approximately 30,000 square feet. The height, 1 story, approximately 35 feet, with portions approximately 45 feet. Total height of the structure, including spire and steeple, not to exceed 120 feet. And then they kind of attached a rendition. So the town did that. They met, they voted, and they voted unanimously to accept the recommendation to recommend approval. Now, keep in mind, the town has not seen the temple. They've only seen these exhibits that have handwritten and scratched out. And again, the proportions are approximately. So, it doesn't say it's going to be 120 feet. It says not to exceed. Maybe the church is going to come back at 70 feet. Maybe they're going to come out at something other than that. So these are approximates. We don't know lighting plan. We don't know
Hmm.
sewage plan.
Hmm.
We don't know all the other plans that came up in all the other
Parking. Yeah.
questions. Yeah.
We don't know anything.
So all of these questions still have to be addressed, but the town's saying, look, we recommend approval um, of this, and all of them said we recommend it. And then the second step was the town will convene a public information session in December to inform residents of the proposed amendments to the current CUP application. So it was, the church insisted that the town have a public information meeting and say, this is what we agreed to. The town did that. We covered that. We were live for that session, broadcast that. So the town did exactly what they were supposed to do in number one and number two. We come to number three. The ball's now in the church's court firmly. The church will amend its current CUP application to reflect the agreements described in paragraph one above, together with proposed terms related to lighting, setbacks, and other required elements of the site plan and applicable development requirements by no later than January 13, 2025. The church no-showed. They didn't turn in the application. In fact, what they did turn in on January 13th is a letter, and we will go to that letter in which the church says we are not going to turn in anything. We have changed our mind, and let me see if I've got the right letter here. Yeah, so this is dated, as you can see, January 13th. It's from the law firm representing the church.
Right. And remember, we were kind of speculating. We were like, do you think that the church is in the dark? The town is in the dark? Do you think that the application just didn't show up and they don't know what's going on? Well, now we know that they did receive something from the church on that same day where the application was not submitted. So, of course, we did not know that at that time.
It says, Dear Bill, I'm writing in connection with the non-binding memorandum of settlement, the memorandum, a copy of which is attached for reference. In connection with the church's desire to construct a temple on the property that it owns in Fairview, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the church, and the town of Fairview, the town, mediated their dispute on November 18, 2024. The church participated in that mediation in good faith, and while it believes it is clearly entitled under federal and state law to construct a temple as described in the current CUP zoning district application, it compromised its position in order to be a good neighbor and avoid a lawsuit, notwithstanding the substantial burden that the town's actions have placed on the church's free exercise of its religious belief. Now, this is all lawyer talk because they have to prove that it's a substantial burden on them that they can't build this temple. And so they're saying, hey, we're trying to be a good neighbor, even though they've threatened lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit and led with that we're going to sue you. But they're saying that they're trying to be a good neighbor to avoid a lawsuit. That compromise agreement, which is documented in the memorandum, provided that one, the church would pursue construction of a temple that would be scaled down from the temple it initially proposed to the town, in exchange for which, two, the town would support issuance of a conditional use permit zoning district for such temple. Now, as I read it, it said that they would support it, but they don't say that they have to pass it. It's non-binding. So they're saying, hey, if you can get in this neighborhood, we think we can support it. Since the date of that mediation and memorandum, the town's conduct has raised concerns about whether the town intends to make good on its commitments. For example, on December 3rd, 2024, the town scheduled a public information session. That was the requirement of the mediation. So yes,
That's right.
They did exactly what they were supposed to.
That was number two, to hold a public meeting and tell the citizens about what had happened at the non-binding mediation. That's right. So there you go.
So they're saying that this session, which they were required to have, is raising concerns to them. Throughout the meeting, town officials referred to the church in negative ways, characterizing it as a bully, asking local residents to communicate concerns about the scaled-down temple to Utah, and essentially describing the memorandum as an opening position in a still ongoing negotiation, which it is an ongoing negotiation. We still don't know about lighting. We still don't know about, there's still a lot of things, and we haven't seen
That
anything from
that's
them.
a big part of it. All they have is a little kind of scribbled drawing. I mean, for a town to make a decision, you need professionally rendered architectural drawings, and no one has seen those yet at all.
So the town can't make a decision at this point because they haven't seen anything. That was the next step that the church
Yep.
had to produce.
Yep.
Consistent with the town statement during the meeting, the town's mayor made similar comments to the press immediately after the meeting, including the following. Mayor Lesnar said the negotiation is just the first inning. He hopes the church leaders heard residents' concerns and will keep them in mind when they come to the town's planning and zoning committee next year. I see nothing wrong with this statement.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly right. The process does start over again. Just because you have this mediation doesn't mean that they get together and vote and pass it. It has to go through the exact same process the previous one went through. That's the requirement to build. So by Mayor Lesnar saying, look, it's the first inning, they have to now submit a drawing. We'll go through the process. And the church just told us they wanted to be good neighbors. He's saying, hey, church, did you hear what everyone's still saying? You asked for this information meeting. People came and told you what they thought, and now you're all mad because they didn't like the proposal that you made.
I
It's
think they felt in a way that maybe the council could, control the citizens. Again, I'll say it's maybe a difference of democracy and theocracy. In a theocracy, you do tell people what to do. Like in the church, in a democracy, it has to go through the process. You have to take it to planning and zoning. You have to hear the voice of the citizens. You have to vote. And I think maybe the church expected something different than that process. I don't know.
Well, look at their next line. To be good neighbors, they need, this is what the mayor said. To be good neighbors, they need to come in and do something that's acceptable to the town without us operating under the threat of a major lawsuit. Mayor Lesnar said, I don't think it's over yet. It's kind of in their court to make a change. We will see. Again, I don't see anything wrong
Yeah.
with what he's saying here. He said, they're saying that they're trying to be a good neighbor, but every time we turn around, they threaten a lawsuit against us.
It's pretty reasonable what he's saying. It's just like, look, everybody. Yeah. And also keep in mind, this is right before Christmas. I mean, people have other things going on, kind of, so it's almost like, okay, here's what we did. We're going to revisit this in January. That's kind of it too. Let's just simmer it over the holidays. And yeah, I don't see anything wrong with those statements. I don't see those as being bullying or aggressive or anything against the church.
Well, and the mayor, the whole town has said, the whole time we've been threatened with lawsuit after lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the concerns that the town had. They said they're
Yeah.
coming in here, they're bullying. And remember, the town laid out during the whole process. They said, here is our standard: 68 foot
Mm-hmm.
and 35-foot roof. They
Mm-hmm.
gave that to the church between the initial planning session and the city council meeting, and they said, come back and bring us something
Mm-hmm.
that fits this. And the church said, give us time, we'll go back, we'll look at this, and we'll make changes. And then they came back and said, we're going to reduce the height by 15 feet,
Yeah.
and we're going to name it the
They didn't say what they would name it. They just said they would rename it. There is
they would
contention
rename
over
it
the
from the
name.
McKinney
Yeah.
Temple.
Right.
That was it. After 2 months, they wasted time. They could have come back with this and proposed this and said, hey, we came back with something else. That would have been a good neighbor. Why didn't they do that?
Yeah.
Because they were protecting themselves for a lawsuit. They wanted this lawsuit. They knew they were going to bring a lawsuit, and so they weren't going to reduce it. They wanted the town to vote it down so that they could then sue them. That's exactly what they wanted them to do. Otherwise, they could have brought this same proposal during that
Right.
time when they were already told that it wasn't going to pass.
Right. I
But look
wonder
at
if they thought that, they called that a significant concession, the 15 feet, right? Maybe they really thought that had worked in other places. I don't know if it has or not. Maybe they thought that would work there. And the town just keeps saying, nope, here's here's what we have. Here's our precedents. Here it is. And they just keep trying and trying. So I don't know. So that's your theory. And there are different theories, different ways to look at it, that they intended to sue all along. And all of these steps are just sort of a way to arrive at that and cover your what.
Well, let's step back and think how this all played out. After it was voted down, the day after, uh,
And that's the
Fairview,
large one. The 173
the
was voted down.
173, the
Everything was
day
over,
after,
but voted in that they could bring something back as soon as they wanted. They didn't have to wait. You know, it was very nice that they
yeah,
did
the
that.
town said,
Mhm.
we're not going to make you wait a year. We can, but we're not going to.
Right.
Go ahead and bring us something else that we can approve, and here's the limits.
Yep.
So they told them specifically what to do. The church decided that they wanted to go to mediation. They asked the town to mediate. The town met with them in mediation. The church brought forth this new plan, which is the plan they should have brought forth
Yeah.
after it didn't pass in planning and zoning, or at least that they should have introduced this idea at that point. But the church comes back with this new design in the mediation. They bring it. The mayor is there and one other council member is there, and
Mhm.
they say, okay, we see that you are not going to come down to this, but we also see that you're threatening lawsuits. We
Mhm.
know that you're a $1 billion corporation. We know that you can bankrupt our city by suing us. And therefore, we're going to, even though we told you what the thing are, if you were really trying to be a good neighbor, you would have conformed with what the neighborhood was saying they wanted you to do, and
Mhm.
you've built temples that meet that requirement other places.
They
When you're
have.
not forced to, when there are zoning laws in other countries, you completely comply with them with no
Yeah.
issue. It's only when you're in the United States and you're using your custom-made RLUIPA law that you're trying to threaten us with this. And so the mayor is absolutely right. He said, if you want to be a good neighbor, don't sit here and keep threatening us with lawsuits.
Right.
Look at what the feedback was from the town. You came to the meeting that
Yeah.
you said
Well,
we
they
had to have.
sent two lawyers as
You sent two
representatives.
lawyers.
Yep.
You
And
heard the
and
comment.
interestingly, do you remember how we noticed that there weren't anybody dressed up in white shirts? They typically will have their members come in white shirts and speak. And we thought that the church had told the members not to come. We found out from somebody in the comments on one of our podcasts that there were people that tried to come, right? And they were kind of told, don't speak, don't do anything by the church. Is that how you understood it?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
we had some locals who were there who said that they knew the people who were going to get up and speak, but they heard them tell them not to get up.
Hmm.
And so I want to point out a couple things. The number two item in that list was that they have this information meeting. It did not say that it was the mayor's responsibility to sell this idea to the town.
No.
It was simply to present they were why the town council voted to allow this, even though it was outside it. That's what they were doing. They said, we know we told them this, but here's why we're saying that we're gonna vote for this, and
Right.
here's why all of us unanimously supported it, is because they've threatened to sue us,
Yeah.
and we
There's a
have,
lot of factors that the
yeah, it's
town
going to
council has
cost
to
us
consider.
so
Yeah.
much money. And because of that, we're recommending that we accept this mediation because we can't afford it's going to bankrupt the city if we try to
Right.
fight this. So they're trying to tell the people this, and the people are upset, saying
Hmm.
this isn't what
Right.
our ordinances are. They're
Right.
breaking our ordinances, which is exactly what you're allowed to say in the town meeting. But here's the question: where were the church members during this to come up and say, we support you, Mayor, in making this decision?
Hmm.
We support this smaller temple. We're showing that, we're also want this because we think it makes a
Right.
better side. But they specifically told their people not to
Yeah.
stand up.
There
There
was
wasn't
no
anyone who stood up in
representation.
support. And they even asked the church lawyers, would you like to say something? And they
They
stood
said
up and said,
no.
no, no. And
And
then they're
interestingly,
complaining that it's in,
they were feverishly scribbling notes,
yes,
and I think the notes were these things,
this is
right?
what
They
they
were
were taking notes
taking a
on.
note of every single time they perceived something negative, when in reality, it was just a town meeting with an elected council interacting with the citizens who had elected them and talking back and forth. But missing was the feedback from the LDS members who also elected them. The LDS members could have said, this means a lot to us. This, let's work this out. But there was nothing. So the
Oh,
lawyers just wrote, and now we have this.
you're obviously going, and you know, they're saying, well, the tone of the meeting was, what'd they say, negative?
I think so. I
Um,
don't know. I think if you scroll down, there's more that they give several different examples of,
well, yeah,
the
yeah, but
town leadership.
he says right here, town officials referred to the church in negative ways, characterizing it as a bully,
Yeah.
asking local residents to communicate concerns about the scaled down temple to Utah. Like that's a
Well,
problem.
that should
What,
be legitimate,
who
right?
should they
Corporate.
who should they write the letter to? They're supposed to send it to the mayor, and
Yeah.
the mayor doesn't know who into
I know
Utah
we've
to
been
talk
asked
to.
many times by residents there, how do we communicate with Salt Lake? We'd like to talk to some decision makers. Let them know how we feel here. Help them understand our town. They ask us that all the time. I'm like, even members can't write to Salt Lake, really. It just kind of goes around in circles. So that is a legitimate thing to ask. I'd like to write to corporate so
Yeah,
we
write to
can
your
express
corporate,
ourselves. Yeah.
write to these
But
guys
that
and
doesn't work in
share
a
with them
church.
what you feel. We know what they're presenting. Tell them you still don't like it.
Yep,
They
that
they
doesn't
they
work in a
need to
church,
hear
though.
that.
All right, I
What is
think they,
wrong with the mayor making that statement? But the
yeah,
church saying we want to be good neighbors, but we don't want to hear anything you guys have
yeah.
to say to us.
I
We
think that's
don't
just
want to see.
standardly how it goes. I think they don't have to
Yeah,
hear very often. And so that's just what they expect. It's interesting, though, if you scroll down, they keep detailing other things that they consider not appropriate.
yeah, the next day, December 4th, 2025, you contacted me on behalf of the town and requested that the church agree to construct a temple significantly smaller than the one the town had agreed to support only 2 weeks earlier. I communicated during that call and in a subsequent call that the temple described in the memorandum represented a substantial compromise by the church, that the church would not agree to additional concessions, and that we expected the town to support construction of the temple as described in the memorandum. I further requested a call between our clients to seek confirmation that the town would support the construction of the temple as described in the memorandum. Now, why does he need to have this call? They've already voted and said we're
They're double
unanimously
checking.
supporting this. Now they're saying, "Oh, wait a minute. You did what we asked, number one and number two, but now we want to individually meet with each member." Now, why does the church want to individually meet with each member who's already signed that they
Yeah.
support this and unanimously voted in open session? They came back and they said, hey, look, this is going to be a little harder than we thought. There's still a lot of people who don't support this. We, the town council can't tell the planning and zoning board how
No?
to vote. Each member of the planning and zoning board can vote how they see fit. And if the planning and zoning board doesn't vote it, then you have to have almost unanimous
Mhm.
approval from the town council. So the town doesn't say we're going to, they're saying we recommend it, but they can't promise you that they're going to vote
No.
for it before they've even seen what you're
Yeah.
proposing
But
at this
again, it's
point.
theocracy, democracy. In the church, they can just say, and the people do. And so I think they lost confidence somewhere in here, maybe because of how Fairview United upped their activity or something. And so then they wanted assurances, perhaps to pressure to meet one on one. That's just not the way the town operates. They don't meet one on one like that. And they'd already signed the agreement that said, we'll support it. We'll support putting it through the process, is kind of what it means.
And let me ask you this: what town council member, after seeing how the church behaved in Las Vegas, the church's
Um,
law firm made $10,000 donations to every member, well, to almost every member of the
mhm.
city council. Okay, we know this happened. They know this happened. You just unanimously voted down the church's plan, and now all of a sudden you meet in private and you come back and you fully support the plan. What are people going to think
Yeah, that
happens
looks bad.
in those closed door meetings where they can't see?
Right.
If I'm a councilman or a mayor, there's no way I'm meeting with the church lawyers so that they can threaten me, bully me, and then make it look like I changed my mind because they promised me something behind closed doors.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep
that's something to
this.
consider. Honestly, they do have to, they have to think about all those kinds of things. You're right. So
So
we don't
why
know.
why didn't the church stand up in the open meeting that was called for exactly this purpose and say something. They asked them, do
Yeah.
you want to say something? And they said no. Then all of a sudden they're calling them saying, we need to talk
Yeah.
one-on-one with each one of you. You had the whole council there in a meeting that you insisted on, and you said nothing, and now you want to go one-on-one, and if they don't meet with you, you're now going to sue them.
Yeah.
That, the town did number one and number two. It was
They
in the
did.
church's court, and now the church is the one saying, well, we don't trust you. Why don't you trust them? They did exactly what they said they were going to do in number one and number two. Just because it was open and transparent meeting where everyone said what they thought about the church and how they didn't like this whole process,
Right.
and how they felt like they'd been maneuvered into this because of the church's unlimited war chest for fighting anything. And then they're mad because the town is saying, look, we agreed to support it, but we don't like it. Nowhere in there did it say you have to like it. It
Right.
just said you would support it, and that's what the town council did, and they were going right down that line. They even had to tell the members, this is why I'm not voting. This is why I'm supporting it
Yeah.
at this point. Now, granted, they said, hey, they still got to bring us something. We haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
Things could still change. This is a non-binding resolution. Things could change. But what do you say when you've just been threatened? You've been through this. You've been lied to by the church over and over again. The church hasn't lived up to any of the commitments they said. They went and they lied to you the first time when they said they were going to come back with a change. And now here's the second time they're going to come back for a change. And you're trusting them to show up with a change. And they show up saying, we're not going to make a change again. And not only that, we're going to go back to the old version.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and we've seen it before in other towns. That's what's unfortunate. And since Fairview communicates with some of these other towns, they know that the threat of a lawsuit is not a threat, it's real. And so, of course, they're going to operate with that. And of course, they're going to operate where they have to hear the voices of their citizens. That so far, you're right. I don't see anything out of order in what the town has done. And then it looks like it's going to talk about the mayor's newsletter.
yeah, in the interim, around December 19th, the church received a copy of the mayor's January 2025 newsletter to the community. In that newsletter, the mayor stated, through our attorneys, we have told them that there is a good chance that the new design with the 120-foot tower will not be accepted. So they've pointed out, hey, this is still a problem in the community. We agreed to recommend it, and we just had a meeting where we recommended we accept it, but the town people are still saying it's too high. So they're saying, hey, we told them there's a good chance that even though we support it, that the planning and zoning may still vote it down, and others may still vote it down because you haven't done what we asked. So, hey, be a good neighbor, make a few more adjustments is what we're asking you so that we can help you push this thing through. The town is asking for help to get this thing through, and the church says, "Oh, we're going to sue you. We don't care. We're only going to be good neighbors to this point. We don't want to be good neighbors any further. Yes, town, you already gave us something, but what we were asking for was so far above what everybody else has gotten that us making a compromise, we're still bigger than everything else in town, and the city's okay with that. They're saying hey, help us out here. We're
Throw us a
telling you
bone.
it's still a problem.
What does that little footnote belong to? It belongs to that statement you just read. The design will not be, possibly may not be accepted. And then the footnote says,
As I told you, no one had ever said that to anyone representing the church. In any event, that statement is entirely inconsistent with the memorandum and the assurances made to the church during the mediation.
See, there's that word, assurances, and again, all they agreed to is, yes, we'll support it going through our process, but then the process is a democratic process. I think there's just a confusion on what assurances mean.
I don't see in this letter where the town said they said we will recommend approval
Yeah.
of this. They didn't say we will approve it.
Right.
They said we're going to recommend approval and then we'll let it go through the process and we'll see how the process shakes out. That's how these processes work. They can't promise a vote that
No,
that would be illegal to
that
say
is illegal, right?
we're agreeing to vote for what we told us without ever having the going through the process.
I know. Do you want me to read the next one? Let's see.
Sure.
Are we starting on December 20th? Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, on December 20th, 2025, representatives of the church and the town convened a video conference to discuss the status of tentative settlement. During that meeting, I expressed the church's strong concern that the tone of the public information meeting, again, that meeting was just open to citizens who have a right to their opinion. How can you even object to that? Also, the mayor's comments to the press and the mayor's statement in the newsletter all indicated that the town would not approve the temple agreed to in the memorandum. And again, I think that's naive right there. None of that says we won't approve it. It says we accept it and it's going to go to our process. And I don't know. I think they're misreading it, misjudging it. The town responded that the community's response to the temple, as described in the memorandum, was more negative than expected, and that while the mayor and mayor pro tem were still in favor of the settlement, they did not know how the others will vote. Well, that's true. What? Of course, they don't know how anyone will vote.
Yeah, exactly. This is the process, and you see it right here. They say, "Oh well, the meeting the town is saying, look, guys, we recommended this. We took it to the open meeting that was required by this, and the response was overwhelmingly negative." Well, why was it overwhelmingly negative? Remember the 15,000 letters you sent in support? Remember all the people you bust in so much that we had to get an overflow to have your people? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys no-showed at the meeting. You didn't help out at all to sell your temple.
Yeah, that's true. They could have had a presence
have a meeting with your people, and you didn't want your people to come in and say what they really thought. You wanted them to speak the party line. So you threw the mayor and the council under the bus during that open meeting by not coming, not saying it. It's an open meeting. You could say anything you wanted positive. You could have come in and said to the town, hey, we're hearing what you say and we want to be a good neighbor. You know what? We'll take this back to Salt Lake. You don't need to write any letters. We'll take it back and we'll let them know what the feeling is here. And maybe we can do a little better. You could have helped out the situation.
Yeah. It reminds me of when a Walmart came to my town. And of course there were, too big, too bright, too light, citizens. And there were meeting after meeting where Walmart top executives for the region came to our meeting, talked to everybody, talked through things, showed us their face, gave us their business cards. We could send an email. We could show our concern. We could interact. There's none of that here. There's lower level representatives telling the town, you tell the people, and the church is absent. Of course, people are going to be more negative without any positive input or good faith or anything from the corporation that's coming in to build something.
And the only people that you really sent to this meeting was your lawyers.
Right. That's what I mean.
You are in an open public information meeting where all the church people.
Remember Laura Lee Hall when, she said in her book that they would meet as architects and they would talk to people one-on-one about what their plan is and what it means and what the building is. It definitely goes a long way to have that one-on-one, that human interaction, so that people can be heard. There was none of that. And that's perceived as being negative, the reaction then of the people to the fact that there was nothing. Lawyers, that was it.
and this is supposed to be a church.
Yeah.
A church is supposed to know how to talk to people and resolve issues between people and resolve conflict. That's what churches teach you. How to be neighborly, how to be kind, how to be outgoing. And yet the church that prides itself on its happy people and it makes sure that none of their people show up to the meeting and only their lawyers show up to further fan the flames of this meeting because all the people are going, where's all the church people?
Exactly. No, they run a tight ship and they kept it really locked down. So let's look at the next one. This looks like it's a phone call. If we scroll up, it says, I called you. Read that one.
Trying to find where we're at.
As a result of the foregoing events, I called you.
As a result of the foregoing events, I called you on January 8, 2025, and requested that the town coordinate meetings between church representatives and each member of the town council individually in order to enable the church to confirm that there is still support for the resolution described in the memorandum. That was not a requirement of the mediation.
Yeah,
The,
that's
re-
true.
the requirement was that the town council, in an open session, vote and give their support. And
Mhm.
they did.
And they did do that.
They
Yep,
don't have to reaffirm it.
they
It's in
did.
writing. They've already stated this. So why does the church need assurances that they're going to vote? They've already done what they said they were going to do.
Hmm.
And in fact, in the lineup above, the thing we skipped there, the mayor and the mayor pro tem were still in favor of the settlement. So they said, "Look,
Yeah,
we're still supporting it. We
right.
just told you we don't know how everyone else is going to
And
vote,
that's what they said right there. Yep. How can they speak for them?
but we can't all sit around and talk about how we're going to vote on something that hasn't been presented to us yet. We all
Exactly.
said we support this general idea. Let's see it before you start counting the votes.
Yeah.
Let's see what you're bringing forward."
Yeah,
And
it's really important to let everybody know what is on the table, right? And at this point, the town does not know.
there is no way, if I was a representative, that I would tell you that I was going to vote
I
for
know.
something that I hadn't seen yet.
Yep.
So on January 9th, you contacted me and advised that although the town would contact the members of the town council to request such meetings, you believed it was highly unlikely that the members of the town council would agree to meet. And we talked about that.
Yep.
Why would you agree to meet when you've
Yeah.
already voted for it? You've
Yep.
already said what you're going to do, and all that can come of it is you're going to intimidate and threaten and maybe even
Pressure.
try to make a campaign donation or something else that you're going to try to use, and that's going to look very bad for the councilman. So,
Yeah, and
but
they
they
never
said,
meet. They've been asked before, and that's just their lawyer advises them, I think. Just don't do that. That's not their process. That's not their procedure. I don't think they ever met one on one, have they? They've
I,
been asked many
I don't think
times,
so. And they
but
said we'll go ahead and forward your request, but we don't think anyone's going to do that.
right. I think they're like advised not to. I mean, for all the reasons.
But
So
again, that was not a requirement.
no, it was not. Okay, I'll read the next one. In light of the foregoing circumstances, the church has no confidence that the town will make good on its commitments as set forth in the memorandum. The church is further concerned that proceedings as though the town will make good on its commitments will simply prejudice the church's legal rights. Interesting. I think that might be protecting the original application there. Accordingly, the church will not submit an amended or new conditional use permit application today. Okay, there they have it.
Okay,
And the
so
town knew that on the day. We all didn't know the town knew, but the town knew what was happening. So, and then is this the last paragraph?
yeah, in the last paragraph, they're going again saying, "Oh, we want to meet individually with you guys."
Yeah. Oh, it is. It says the church reiterates its request to meet individually with the members of the town council. So the meetings will, number one, allow the church to provide an overview of the temple as described in the memorandum. Okay, so is it meaning that they're finally going to show them some renderings, maybe? Why didn't they have those available for the town at the town meeting? That's weird. Two, provide a forum for town council members to ask questions and express concerns. But they're talking about meeting individually, so I don't understand that.
Mhm.
And three, enable the church to determine whether the town will support the settlement as described in the memorandum. They wanted assurances. That's all it boils down to. The church anticipates that each meeting will last less than an hour. So they want to meet individually. They want to talk to that person and they want to take a poll and they want to say, are you going to vote for it? That's what they want to do.
And look, they took everything from the open meeting and they're now using it against the town council. What do you think they're going to now do with the individual meetings that they
Yeah,
meet with them?
good
They're going to
point.
throw that back in their face. That's why nobody wants to meet with them.
Yeah,
The town council doesn't trust the church because the church continues to do none of the things the church is complaining about was the town's responsibility to take care of.
right.
It's a non-binding agreement. They never said that they would vote to pass it. They said they would recommend it, that they'd recommend that this go through for approval, and then they'll see how the church acts, how the church behaves, what the church asks for, what the church tells them, how they cooperate on the lighting and the other things. That's all part of the process. That's what they're at. That's what the town's expecting. The town did number one and number two.
Yeah.
There was no number three that said, after you vote, we then get to meet with you individually to pressure you to change your vote or to make sure that you vote a certain way.
I think that was implied somehow. So I'll read the last one here. It says, despite the town council's and the mayor's comments, the church is still willing to amicably resolve this matter as agreed in the memorandum. However, if the members of the town council refuse to have even a brief meeting with the church, it seems clear that the town will not comply with its obligation under the memorandum, in which case the church will likely be forced to defend its rights in court. The church has done everything it can to avoid that possibility, but if town authorities are unwilling to abide by their agreement, then it will have very little choice. The church is making a lot of assumptions. They're assuming because they will not meet individually, all these things. They're assuming that things said at an open informational meeting by citizens who have every right to express their feelings about this temple. And like you said, the process is long, starting with a misleading letter saying it's going to be a shorter temple, starting with an initial meeting where they were threatening to sue. The citizens are gun shy. They've seen all this, so of course they're going to bring things up. So I don't know. It seems like the church is making a lot of assumptions. They do not know that the town is not going to vote for it. They said they would. They said that they would let it go through the process. And that's all that was expected out of the memorandum. So this seems
this
really
last paragraph
jumping the
to
gun.
me, this last paragraph to me is really disturbing because they say, despite the town council and the mayor's comments, the church is still willing to amicably resolve the matter as agreed in the memorandum. Okay, what was agreed to in the memorandum? That they would have an open meeting, that they would vote to support the proposal, which they did. And the next thing agreed to in the memorandum is the church will provide the drawings. The church didn't provide the drawings. The church.
And if you think about it, then the next day they went on the news and the paper and they just said, yeah, we had this meeting and sure, we'll let it go through our process. That's basically it. I mean, they did do everything they were supposed to do.
Well, it says, however, if the members of the town council refuse to have even a brief meeting with the church, it seems clear that the town will not comply with its obligations under the memorandum. Where in the memorandum did it say that they would meet individually with the church?
Nowhere. And it didn't say that. They just said they would recommend that it passes. That's very interesting. When
which
you
they
compare
did,
those two documents,
and which they were still saying in the town council meeting that they supported, and which they said on the phone call, the mayor and the mayor pro temp said on the call, we're still supporting it. This is still the route we're going with. So the mayor is telling them, you've still got our votes. You've got the whole town council on record saying that they support this. It's time to turn in the application so we can see what we're doing. And yet the church is now trying to turn this back on them and saying you're not living up to the obligations under the memorandum. Who didn't do what they were supposed to? The church's obligation was to turn in a plan by January 13th. Come the day of, they let the town go through all of that process, take all the heat, and then the church, when it comes time for them to do their part of the memorandum, they say, oh, well, we're not doing it. And then they
turn it around and they say, despite their comments and the council's comments, we are still going to be amicable. So they're in a position of the moral high ground, which they don't necessarily deserve, I don't think. What are we almost to the end of this here?
Well,
there we go. Then it's just I sincerely hope. I think
they talk about good faith and all of that stuff. So again, why would who is untrustworthy here? The town, who did exactly what they were supposed to in the memorandum, just because the church didn't like what they had to say, they did it. Despite how tough it was, the town did it.
They did.
Then what happens is the church gives a statement saying, oh, no, we just missed it because we're
just looking at stuff
still
and we'll turn it on.
We want to make sure that we fully comply with everything. When they've already sent a letter saying that we're not going to comply.
It's kind of like blindsiding them at every point. Hey, come to this open house and meet us at the beginning and find out. We're going to sue you, right? That's there that we have on recording. Everything is sort of this la, 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 and then pounce. And that's not how you win friends and influence people, right? Not at all. So it looks like we're at the end of this letter. So this is what the town council had during the whole week. I'm sure they were mulling over it, trying to figure it out. And we, again, didn't know. We were podcasting. What can it mean? What could it be? If we can go back to our slides, we can show everybody what happened earlier today. And I think maybe we need to have like a little spa interlude in between. These letters are making us super heated, aren't they? Should we do some Zen? Should we do some?
You know, we even when this first came out, we said, "Oh my gosh, the church is doing the right thing."
We did.
They're
Okay,
actually making
forward.
some concessions.
I can show you where it is. Let's see. I don't think it's the next one. Okay, so here we go. No. Let's forward. These are a couple other little slides that we have already talked about. So let's go forward. I think it's almost to the last one. Next one, I think, is our correct one here. Nope. There. Nope. One more, I think.
That's the last one.
Oh, is that the last one? Oh my goodness. Okay, because I'm gonna have to grab a piece of paper under my desk, because what happened is I started getting emails from
I've got
people in stakes everywhere. Frisco stake, McKinney stake, Prosper stake. The church, through its representatives in the stake, had sent out a letter to residents to let them know what was happening. And this is the first inkling we got this afternoon of, here I go. I've got it right here. The first inkling of knowing. So what it says is, the church participated in a non-binding mediation with the town of Fairview in November. During this process, the church made a significant concessions, including reducing the steeple height to 120 feet and modifying the temple to a single-story building of approximately 29,600 square feet. The church understood that these adjustments fully addressed the concerns previously raised by the Fairview Town Council. Again, this letter is going out to members of the church everywhere to let them know the intent of what's happening.
How does the church say that with a straight face? Because every one of these church members that were following this saw that the town council said 68 feet. So they're now saying the town council told us 120 feet, and that's not. They just finally said we can't afford a lawsuit, so we'll support 120 feet.
Yeah, and we'll now support 120 feet. Well, there was a lot of things that the members had to kind of take in, like the steeple doctrine, right?
Yes.
That was something new, but they had to get on board with that. Okay, the next part of the letter says, the church was fully prepared to submit the revised temple application by January 13th deadline in accordance with the mediation agreement. However, based on recent discussions with the town and public statements made by the mayor of Fairview, it became clear that there were concerns about the town's commitment to honor the agreed upon terms. So they're letting their members know that whatever happened in mediation now in the interim, I think it's alluding to Fairview United's activity being upped a little bit, the statements, that the mayor made. They're basically, again, reassuring their members, we have done everything and we have kept our part of the bargain. But as we just showed, that's not the case. But the members, they need to make sure they understand it that way. As a result, the church delivered an official intent to sue notice to the town of Fairview this morning. Now, this morning is Friday the 27th. They were very quick to let their members know that this is what's happening. They didn't mention the letter on the 13th.
And that's what I put up right here, the 27th.
Yeah, this is the new one that we're going to go through after I finish this one. And they didn't mention, although we said in our press release that we were still, they never mentioned that. They just said, this is what we're doing now. Please see the letters below for details. They even included both letters to the city in this email to the members, which I thought was very interesting. We are grateful for your ongoing faith and prayers, and I would add fasting to that, of course. Our sincere hope is to reach a resolution that respects the needs of our growing church membership in North Texas, upholds the rights of all religious groups, and addresses the interests of the town. So there it is. They very quickly sent this email out. This notification is also on the church website about the McKinney Temple, or maybe I'm not sure. Yeah, it has the church logo on it. I think it is their actual website. So this went out today, and then it kind of spread like wildfire because we almost couldn't believe what we were reading. Here it is. And not only is there one letter today, but we were able to read the back letter that we didn't know about, that we just went over from the 13th. So now this is the actual letter where they give some more details, I guess. Letter number 2, talking more about the suit. So we will
Well,
go through this.
it's really not details, and I don't think we should take the time to go through it
Okay.
because it's basically a standard legal letter that says we
Okay.
intend it's you can see right here, public information request and notice of intent to sue. What they're doing is they're saying we're going to sue you, therefore we need all of your all the documents that you have, all your emails and everything else. The city already received this. Do you remember?
I was going to say, this is not the first time this has happened. The very day after they voted down the larger temple and said, bring us back something else, but this one isn't going to pass, a lawsuit from 2 individuals in a town near Fairview saying, I have to drive too far to the temple. I'm suing you. Intent to sue. And what did it say, Landon? You're right.
Keep it's all the exact same thing. Yeah.
Emails,
you need to
keep all your correspondence.
We're going to take all this. We're threatening to sue you again, and we intend to sue you. So
yeah, and then that lawsuit disappeared. We podcasted about that. We never heard another word about that. I almost wonder if it wasn't something to put in place to make them save things in anticipation of what might happen down the road.
Well, that's what makes you start saying, is the church even negotiating in good faith? They keep saying they're negotiating in good faith. Let's step this back and see what happened, where they keep saying they're in good faith. We already mentioned that, during the process, they were asked to make changes and given 2 months to come back with with changes, which they said they would look at that and come back, and they came back with the 15-foot reduction. Nothing. They said they were going to do something. They didn't do it. The next thing is, after they don't pass it, we get a lawsuit. Who the church says, we don't know anything about this. This isn't our lawsuit. This is just 2 members who happen to be in the executive secretary of
they both had
the
stake level or
stake level callings.
Yeah. And one was a lawyer, and I can't remember what the other one was, but we did look into that.
So they send out an intent to sue right away. So of course, this looks like the town looks like they're being bullied. They're being threatened a lawsuit. But what was the purpose of that lawsuit? The church says that wasn't our guys. So, we slapped them down and told them no. The church put them up to it so that they could send
allegedly, yes.
Yeah, allegedly. Let's look at that.
That's our opinion. It's possible.
So the church says, put this out. You go out, you do that. Now the city has to keep all the documents and everything that you intend to use in case you have a lawsuit that comes out. But you don't want to tell them you're going to sue them because that's bad PR. So you have your church members do it for you. And then you come back and you play this game where you say, we're going to mediate. Now, there's 2 ways I can see this mediation happen. One is they never intended for the city council to accept their proposal. They were surprised that they said yes to it. And now, because they wanted to take it to the Supreme Court, and they always wanted the bigger building, and that's what they were going to do. But by doing this process, they were going to go and they were going to say, we're going to have a mediation. We're going to make this agreement. And so then they put in there, you have to have a meeting and explain it. Then we're going to go to the meeting and we're going to say, we're not going to show up. And then we're going to write all the mean things you said about us. And then we're going to take that to our members and we're going to say, look how mean they are, members. We tried everything.
That is a thought. I've been talking to other attorneys. I've been talking to residents, and that is one of the alleged things floating around out there, an idea that maybe it was sort of a preconceived, down this path. And that is a possibility. I mean, we don't know.
And then if the council does accept it, the church is going to do exactly what they did here. They're going to say, now we've got the meeting minutes from all of this, and now we're going to say to our members, look how mean this town council was to you.
Yeah.
Either way, the church wins. If the town doesn't agree to the 120 foot, they say, we tried, we went to mediation,
we tried
guys.
Everything.
If the town does accept it, they write this down, and then they say, oh, look, we tried to be nice, but look, we came up with 5 things they said that were really mean to us.
Yes.
It wasn't in the memorandum. It didn't say they had to be nice and tell you how much they loved you and what a great church this was and bear their testimony. That was never a requirement. But the church could play this and they win both ways. And that's exactly what they do. They pull the application. So now they're either using this legal document to force the town to meet with them one-on-one so that they
Right.
can continue to crush and push. But the one thing that they ever don't have is just trust. The church,
Yeah.
the church is but who's missed everything that they've been asked? It's been the church. The church
Right.
was supposed to turn it in on January 13th. The church missed what they were supposed to turn in.
Yeah. I'm
The
sure
church,
they don't see it that way though. I'm sure that they don't. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at this. And I don't know if we know. I think we're just gonna have to wait and see.
well, we talked about, does the church want to take this to the Supreme Court?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to take it to the Supreme Court, but you don't want to look like
A bully.
a bully to do it,
Yeah.
this is what you do.
That's
You
right. We
simply want to have
try. We
mediation, and
try. Yeah.
then you pull the rug out from everybody, and then try to make it look like it's their fault that all of this happened, and then you try to take these statements to this to any court hearing and say, look, they're prejudicial. They said they were going to support it, but
Yeah.
now we know they weren't. When in fact, everybody on the town council has said that they've talked to here in the memo. Two people said we're still supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
Six all unanimously approved it in the initial.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's on board except the church. The church is the one not doing it.
I just
The
think
town
there's a
council can't.
miscommunication. I think they're just not understanding because you're right. On paper, they've done exactly what they said they would do, and they've still said they'll support putting this new application through the process. But again, since they did not submit that application, that's not the application they're going to be suing about. It's the original one. Isn't that what that means? That's kind of back in play now.
Yes, and we saw on the newscast, RFM said, yeah, they're trying to preserve the original one because they
Mhm.
don't trust the town.
Yeah,
But what the town has done everything
I know.
that the church has asked.
Yeah,
And yet the church says, we don't trust you. The church is the one who said it was a 2-story building and then
yeah,
it was 170 foot tall. The church is the one who said they'd come back with changes and didn't come back with changes. The church is the one that said we'd submit on the 13th and didn't submit on the 13th. How is the town supposed to trust these guys? How is the town
yeah,
supposed to sit there and say, hey guys, look, they're really trying to be good neighbors. We had a mediation. It was good. They gave some, hey, you know what? They might listen if we say, you know what, the 120, we thought the town would buy it, but what if we go to 70 feet tall with the base of the steeple, the thick part of the steeple, and
right.
then we
And then
put a
just have
lightning rod the rest of the way
yeah,
that's thin, because all you agreed to was 120 feet. You didn't say it has to be so
yeah,
thick or anything.
that's true.
Now it looks 70 feet, but you got the 120 feet. Your spire makes you look up to God.
Yeah,
You guys get the temple next week. There's
yeah.
ways around this, but the
There are
church
ways
doesn't
around it.
trust anybody because the church doesn't trust themselves. They know how they act in
Yeah.
these
I think that's
situations.
it. There's a lot of duplicitousness, I think, that you could maybe interpret behind the scenes. And I know the residents you're absolutely right. They are gun shy. They have been burned before in this process and they don't know what to think or what to do. And the town council is in even worse position. So, and I know in our interactions with all these people, they're all really awesome people. Like they want to do the right thing, and they want to work with someone who also wants to do the right thing. It reminds me of when we first started podcasting with Cody, about Cody, and they were all members of their own churches, and they said, oh, we're a church, they're a church. I'm sure that we can work this out. We're all good, God-fearing people. And then by the end of it, they're like, that is not who they are. That is not who we're negotiating with. So I think Fairview is now kind of in that situation. They can't trust the church because of the past. And the church is now, I think, sort of, I don't know, can you say trumping up charges? I don't know. They're misunderstanding what's happening. If they read through that mediation agreement, the town did do everything it was supposed to do. So
Well,
I don't
and
know.
there's a couple other problems. We covered that they had a town choir at
Yeah.
Christmas
The
to,
defense
to
fund choir.
to,
Yeah.
to raise money for a defense fund for the
Yeah.
town. Now, the church probably is looking at that going,
Yeah.
look, they're building up a defense fund to
Right.
fight us. Well, you already have your defense.
Yeah.
You're threatening them with lawsuit after lawsuit. You've been doing it the whole time. How is it that the town can't just magically come up with money overnight? Of
No.
course, until this is resolved, they have
Yeah.
to try to say, we could be sued. we need to have a defense fund. This is costing us a lot of money. The church is also building up a defense fund. They already have it. It's
Yep.
billions of dollars sitting in the
Unlimited
SEC.
amounts. And it's true. The town has its own defense fund. And then the Fairview United Citizens also has a fund too that you can donate to. And these have been going on for several months. It's nothing new. It's not like they just started this, because if they go into litigation, if they lose, they have to pay their own costs and the church's costs. And this is astronomical. We heard at the streamed meeting. Remember the meeting on the 3rd, the informational meeting, that the town council was saying, so I think it was a resident that was asking, how much would this cost? Does this boil down to money? And they're like, yeah, this is what we have in the town. This is how much it would cost. This is how fast it would disappear. And so I think they definitely take that into consideration.
Well, let's think also, what would offering mediation do to the town's ability to establish a legal defense fund? We all know people were hesitant to donate to it because they're going,
true.
oh, look,
they thought it was
mediation,
over.
And they've recommended an agreement. If this gets
point.
agreed to, then it's all over. Well, why am I going to donate money to a legal defense fund when there's an agreement in place?
Yep, that is true. That happened. People were like, well, I mean, it sounds like it's all okay. Or we're going to wait and see was kind of the attitude when there were pretty active donations prior to that mediation. So that's a good point. That shut that down.
So that this mediation benefited the church in just about every way. They still, if this were to pass, they got higher than what the zoning codes are.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped their opponent from raising funds by putting this mediation in place. So the church benefits from this mediation. What does the town get out of it? Do they get what they want? No. The only thing they're getting is we're not getting sued.
Right.
That's what the town gets out of it. And so the town is playing along saying, we hate this deal, but we can't afford the fight.
Yeah.
Therefore, we're going to recommend it, but we're going to tell you, church, that we don't like it.
Right.
And we're going to ask you if you really want to be a good neighbor and you really want to have good, public
public relations,
with the community, then bring it back, lower the steeple, and think about it. I don't think anyone is not going to pass this thing because of the little roof that sticks up 45 feet.
No, and they don't care about that.
The other piece,
it's the steeple. That's
because other churches have that same thing. It's the steeple height.
Yeah.
Bring the steeple to 70 feet, put a pointy thing on it. Let's see the rendering.
Pointy thing. Is a pointy thing an official architectural word?
The pointy thing, yeah.
The pointy thing, that's right. No, that way it would be a done deal for sure.
You get yourself, it looks like it's only 70 feet, but it really goes to 120. You can look up, you can say, look at the spire, how inspiring. Everybody gets what they want. They say, well, it needs to fit the needs. They're not saying to reduce the square footage any. The square footage to 30,000 square feet is fine. In fact, I don't think anyone cares if it's 45,000 square feet as long as it's
just the height, to be honest. It is
within
just
the height.
Yeah, and the height has nothing to do with the capacity of the building. And they've showed by different plans that they can meet the needs that the church said with those footprints. Somebody sent me today a schedule for tomorrow at the Dallas Temple. It's pretty dang empty. There was nobody going. So yeah, each session had like 20, 30. And maybe it's filled up since then. But again, I think that a temple that size with a shorter spire that has nothing to do with meeting the needs of, the sessions and everything, it's a win-win for everybody. So I hope something like that happens. I think the town would be okay. A set like a 60, 70, and then just a little tiny thin spire going up. But I don't know if that's even in the cards at all at this point because of the mistrust.
There is a solution here if people could just talk. And when I say people, I'm talking people, not lawyers.
No.
The problem is the church doesn't come and talk to you as people. They send their lawyers. They lawyer up. You're not allowed to ask any questions. You're not allowed to how do you build any kind of camaraderie with people who you don't even know who the people are? There's some faceless people in Salt Lake being represented by lawyers.
Yeah.
That never works out positively for building relationships of trust.
No, and we've
Send
heard that from a
somebody
former
important.
temple architect. We've heard that from Laura Lee Hall, who would go out and actually have focus groups, have community groups, talk to people, explain who we are, a face, not just a wall of suits. So you're kind of saying, Landon, that somebody from the church and somebody from the town needs to just go out and get a beer together, right? Sit down and talk.
That's
That's
exactly right. If they all went and got a beer, that
the world's
wouldn't
problems are
work.
solved over
Yeah.
a beer, right? Little
But
peanuts,
but
beer,
there
talk
are
about it.
solutions if the church would just bring their architects, and the architects get to sit down and listen to
Yep.
the people,
Yep.
and the architects can come back and say, hey,
Yeah, I got a
how
solution.
about this?
Mhm.
How about
Yep.
this? You know, hey, some people brought some ideas. What if we did this? I think this would
Mhm.
fly.
Mhm.
And go back and forth. But instead, the lawyers are making the decisions here
Yeah.
on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And this just shows you that what the mayor was saying is exactly right. This is bullying.
Yeah.
This is not negotiating. This is not good neighbors. Good neighbors don't send their lawyer over to talk to you and tell you what they want. They go over personally and have a
Right.
personal relationship with you. And that's what the members in this town want. You think they're impressed that the lawyers keep coming and beating on their neighbors? They'd love to tell their neighbors, "Hey, you know what? That's a good idea. We think that would
Mhm.
work too." But they're not allowed to say anything.
No.
And the church intentionally keeps them out of these meetings so that
Yeah.
that's exactly why they're keeping them out of these meetings is they don't want them to stand up and say, "You know what, Mayor, I agree. If it went
Yeah.
70 feet, I could live with that."
Yep.
The
Can't we
church
all get
doesn't want
along,
that.
right? Is
Yep.
what they I think, and I think we know because of the volume of faithful members that reach out to us and give us information or say my heart is breaking for my town. I think there are many, many faithful members who would like to see an end to this, would like to see it amicable, and believe there's a solution. If we could maybe just take the lawyers out of it, right? And have people talking to people. Or I love the idea of architects. That's what Laura Lee Hall used to do.
Yeah.
What do you guys want? What'll work? What about this? What about that? You know, there are other ways to do it without just slapping a lawsuit. I mean, do you want to be Cody? Do you want to be Heber? Again, it's happening everywhere. I'm sure Bakersfield is in line. It's really sad to see.
Yeah, it is. There was a pathway right here. It was
Yeah.
lined out. It was agreed to by the church
Mhm.
and by the city, and the city followed it. The church may not like they're going to take their ball and go home because people said mean things about us when we were mean.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they seem to be
People
saying
said
here.
mean things about us when we were mean. That's really
Yeah.
awesome.
Now
That
we're
actually
trying
says
to
it
be
in a
nice, so
nutshell.
you need to say
That
really
should be the
nice
title
things
of the
about
thumbnail.
us. So
I love that.
it's just so discouraging to
Yeah,
see the church playing these games.
I know.
Everyone lived up to what they were required to do in the memorandum from the town. The first people who reneged on the deal was the church. That's the bottom line.
That is
One and
bottom.
two, read the memorandum. City did what they were supposed to do. Church time to stand up and give it your go and lay something on the table so that people can start talking and saying this is what we can approve. And remember, it didn't say we'll approve 120 foot. It said up to 120 feet. So they're saying we're not going to approve anything higher than 120 feet.
Right.
But you know what? If you make it 70 feet with a little spire on it, we can approve. We may approve that right away. You
Yeah.
know, but we don't know. You haven't shown us anything yet.
That is strange. All they have is that little weird drawing, and that's nothing that anybody could really look at and say, yes, I'm on board with that, because it means nothing. It doesn't. And also, like you said, all the infrastructure around it, right? Landscaping and traffic and watering and sewage. And there's so much to think about, but everybody's fixated on that height. And that is the sticking point, ironically. So, well, we'll have to see. I guess that's all we can do, right? And I'm sure more things will come out. And but right now, I think we're sad. It's unfortunate that they said one thing in the newspaper, oh, we'll submit that soon. And then on that, before that, even they'd already submitted something that said we're not happy and we think we're going to sue.
Yeah.
And
Again,
now the intent to sue.
everything the church tells you is contradictory and opposite of what they say. They say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to submit it. Oh,
Yeah.
no, we've already submitted a lawsuit telling you we're going to sue you. Oh, we're going to turn in a packet on the 13th. Oh, no, now we're not because we didn't like what you said in the open meeting that we required you to have as part of the mediation.
That's the irony.
You can
So
see where the town folks have just got to be pulling their hair out going,
I
who
know.
are these people?
I know. No, they are. And we've seen that in every single town. And again, it doesn't have to be this way. The LDS church is full of amazing people. Temples are wonderful. When they're built in the right place, and it can be a win-win for everybody if it's done right. But this is, I think, an unfortunate step backwards because I feel like the town, I don't know, part of me feels like, maybe it would have passed. I don't know. Maybe there would have been some concessions. I don't know. It just could have gone a different way aside from this, but we'll see. I mean, this may be like a hammer at the town to try to get them to say, oh no, okay, we'll do it. But again, it still has to go through the process, planning and zoning and town council. There is no way around that. It has to do that with input from citizens. It has to.
And everybody who's on the town council and who's on the planning and zoning has to, there's a reason that you go through the process so that you can hear all the details and then make an informed decision.
Exactly.
So they're recommending this, but they've got to hear the details. And that's why we have elected officials to listen to the details. And then they see the details and then they weigh that. You've given us this temple. We've seen what the town says. We know that there's an expensive lawsuit pending. And therefore, we're going to say, is it worth the lawsuit, or are we going to go ahead and pass it and say we don't like this, but we're going to pass it because that's for the town council to decide. But you have to present it to them before, and you're making the decision for them. You're saying we don't think they're going to pass it, therefore we're not even going to give them the chance to because we don't think. You're making the decision for them.
Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions. I'll say that again. I think there's some misunderstandings and assumptions of what the town's actual, oh my goodness, my dog is barking. I think that she's trying to tell us we need to wrap up.
We need to wrap it up. The bottom line is this is Utah politics in Texas. Their expectation is we go to the town council, we tell them what the church wants, and the town council does exactly what the church wants. That's Utah politics, and they're trying to lay that over on Texas, and it's not working in Texas.
That's a very good point. Don't mess with Texas. That's it. So, all right, everybody, I think we've covered it. There was a lot to cover. Emotions ran very high. We were disappointed today, and we love everybody in Fairview. And, we obviously understand the LDS. My goodness, what an insistent Alice, my dog. We understand, the members of the church's point of view, and we care about them too. We want everybody to be okay, to have a temple, for the residents to also be satisfied. So we're hoping there's still some way forward, and we'll keep you all informed as far as what we learn and what happens. So please comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Again, if you have not been following this, we have some more recent podcasts that are in our temple playlist that you can check out on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast, and you can be made aware of new episodes. Or you can be made aware of the next time my dog is going to bark. Oh my gosh, by hitting that notification bell. And there are always links in our show notes to Donor Box. We are a nonprofit, and we appreciate so much those of you that make donations to us. It just really helps us and means so much to us. We also have links to our Mormonish merch store. That's really fun, where you can get Mormonish merchandise. So thanks again, Landon, for co-hosting. You were extraordinarily passionate in this episode, as you should be. So if we have to turn the volume down on it when we listen to it, it was great though. Thanks again, everybody, for Mormonish Podcast, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks all.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.